Today, when you're speaking, please identify yourself and speak clearly. You may be asked to repeat your comments or questions if there is a delay or issue with the audio. The purpose of our Q&A sessions here is to address questions related to the ARP ESSER requirements and allowable uses, and really to provide detail for our LEAs about two required district plans. The first plan, the Safe Return to In-Person Instruction and Continuity of Service Plan, which is due to be publicly made available by districts this week on Thursday, June 24th, 2021. The second plan is around the district ARP ESSER plan that is due by August 24th, 2021. And so we put these sessions together to really provide those pieces. The format for this session is really in two parts. We will answer questions that we received by the close of business each Friday, or provide responses to frequently asked questions that we're seeing out in the field. And then in the second half, we'll take live questions that you might have that we can answer during this session. Please at any time use the chat feature to ask clarifications about the responses we are providing or to raise additional questions that you might have, so that when we get to part two, we're ready to go. So before we dive in, I'd like to just do a couple of introductions from the OPI team here. So my name is Julie Mergel, and I am the Senior Manager of School Improvement and Innovation. Jeff? Mindy, you want to go ahead and we'll come back to Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Askelson. I am the program analyst. I work with Jeff and Julie on the eGrants side of the ESSER funds.
And Jeff needs to learn how to unmute his microphone. So, sorry, everybody. I'm Jeff Kirksey. I am the ESSER program manager.
Thanks, Jeff. And other people who you guys have been behind the scenes really helping us here work through the ARP ESSER process, whether it's ESSER 1, 2, or 3, are Tracy Mosman, our Chief Program Officer, Michael Sweeney, our Chief Data Officer, Dave Williams, our new Chief Financial Officer, Chris Evriel, Communications Director, and Jay Phillips, who's our Senior Manager of Centralized Services. And Jeff and I have been working very closely as we look at ARP ESSER and think about really the combination and the connection between programming and funding, and being sure that we're really thinking closely about those two things that live very, very close together. And so it has been a couple of really intense past few months, but we are moving along, and definitely here to support each of you as we look at local control and local decisions and problem solving. So key dates, just to kind of share before we jump into the Q&A sessions, we will be hosting one more Q&A session next week on Tuesday, June 29th, and then we'll close out these particular Q&A sessions. June 15th, we did kind of talk with the education advocates about this. June 18th was the deadline last Friday to submit cash requests for June payments for all federal programmings, including ESSER, for that June payment. We did extend that just so that we could be sure that we got the permissions out for ESSER 2 applications that we're in. And Jeff is currently up to date and moving into reviewing applications and e-grants for ESSER 3. We had mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but June 24th is the deadline for the first district plan to be made publicly available, the Return to In-Person Instruction and Continuity of Service Plan. And I sure hope no one turns that into an acronym. June 24th to the 25th this week on Thursday and Friday, the OPI is hosting a virtual Montana Education Summit to support districts with educational planning and opportunities. And we have well over 200 people already registered for that event. And then July 1st is the date that the template for the district ARP ESSER plan will open through the Teams application. It is currently in production and getting tested, so will be ready to go, and we're looking forward to that. We'll be sharing a few things about that particular plan later in this session. And then we will start opening up some sessions in July, the 13th, 20th, and 27th, to really host some webinars to assist districts in developing and submitting their district ARP ESSER plans and kind of just reviewing that template. That's a uniform template for them. August 3rd through the 5th, this is in particular for our schools that have been identified as comprehensive support and improvement. We will be hosting a regional summit so that we can really work with them and their leadership teams to meet, plan, and coordinate all the programming for their ESSER funds and impact aid and school improvement support and Title I funding, to just really help them coordinate and braid those programming so that they have really one plan that they're working for school improvement. Then August 24th, that's the date when the district must submit the ARP ESSER plan back to the OPI through that Teams application. And then September 1st is the deadline by which districts need to be sure they've submitted their application for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 applications in the eGrant system. Of course, we encourage districts to complete those at any time between now and September 1st, but that is the deadline for that. Just to kind of ground us before we jump into our questions, again, ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. We've received 3 rounds of ESSER funds that have been authorized by the Congress in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are currently really focused right on this 3rd set, which is the ESSER 3, and that process. It is a requirement for from the department that we received 2/3 of the ESSER 3 funding, and that we had to submit a state plan and have approval of that state plan for that remaining 1/3 ESSER 3 funding to be designated to the state. So we did submit our plan on June 7th, and we are awaiting approval from the department. A couple of details before we jump into the Q&A session of where these questions are coming from and the responses and other helpful documents that can guide our districts into what are allowable uses and kind of those frequently asked questions. What are the eligibility requirements? What does it mean to put in a pre-approval for construction? So the requirements under the ARP Act relating to these ESSER funds are published in the Federal Register, and I will put that link here in the chat box in a few minutes. And then the department put out a really pretty expansive ESSER and GEAR FAQ document that does have quite a bit of information in it about allowable uses. It's a pretty deep guidance document. And then we have produced, FAQ document for our districts that's unique for Montana that is on our webpage. And we've also uploaded the videos and the links to these Q&A sessions so that the slides are up there, as well as the video link to go back and see them as necessary. That we have also put up on our webpage an ESSER 3 guidance document that kind of outlines the allowable uses for the grant as well. Just want to share a disclaimer similar to the FAQ document issued by the department. The contents of this document do not have the force and effect of the law and are not meant to bind the public in any way. This information is subject to change as additional information is released from the U.S. Department of Education. So today, we've actually gone back to recircle some questions about the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity services plan. We seem to be getting a lot of questions last week because we know that the deadline is coming. We will share a few things about the district ARP ESSER plans. We have some questions around just details and technical things about the eGrant application, and then some pieces on maintenance of equity. So what we will go ahead and jump into these questions. So Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and read the questions to you, and we'll move from one question to the next. So starting with the details on the district plans. Question, Jeff, what is the timeline for ESSER 3 submission?
Yes, so there are 3 key dates for for districts to be aware of, 3 deadlines. The first is June 24th. That's this coming Thursday, and it is my birthday. Districts must make publicly available their return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plans. On August 24th, districts must submit the uniform ARP ESSER template to the OPI through the teams, through teams. So terms of employment, accreditation, and master schedule. The district ARP ESSER plan template will open, as Julie mentioned earlier, on the 1st, and it will close on the due date, August 24th. So, and then September 1st is the due date for the submission of both the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 applications in the eGrant system.
Jeff, is the OPI providing a template for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan?
No, OPI is not providing a template for the safe return plan. We actually are recommending that LEAs build on their existing plans. LEAs likely have plans that address many of the elements of the federal requirement. This may include health and safety plans developed in collaboration with your local departments of health. You may have an existing remote learning plans, reopening plans submitted to the governor in the spring of 2020, or other strategic plans that encompass aspects of these requirements. Districts should consider using those previously developed plans to meet relevant requirements of the federal assurances and add additional elements, stakeholder involvement, for example, as necessary to meet the federal expectations.
Yes, Jeff, and I also know that MONPEC has provided some support out to districts on a template for the safe return and in-person instruction and continuity of service plan. That is a good plan to reference as well. So if folks are still looking for somewhat of a guidance and template, please do reference MONPEC. They have provided some good information there. All right, Jeff, is the OPI providing a template for the district ARP ESSER plan?
Yes, so we are actually requiring districts to use a uniform template. So, districts will need to use the template we provide. LEAs will submit an ARP ESSER plan to OPI through Teams, and the district ESSER plan template will open July 1st and close August 24th. OPI will continue to release information on our website under the ESSER info page. That's right under the picture of the superintendent. There's a button there on our main page, and we will work in anticipation of the opening of the templates and Teams. So, and Julie went over a calendar of webinars that we will be doing in the month of July to assist in that process.
Jeff, is a return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan required of all LEAs, even those who have already returned to in-person instruction?
Yes, I get this question pretty often, and the answer is yes. LEAs are required to develop a plan or update an existing plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of service, say that 3 times fast, consistent with statutory requirements of the ARP Act and the IFR. If an LEA has already returned to 100% full-time in-person instruction, which many of our schools across the state have, the plan should focus on its current and future activities to keep students and staff safe and ensure continuity of services.
Will there be special reporting requirements for ARP ESSER 3 grants?
We think that will be very likely. The department has not yet released the reporting requirements. However, we want schools and districts to be prepared to report the use of funds to the department or to OPI or both. This is one of the key reasons for the uniform template for the LEA ARP ESSER plan.
What do the different allocations in eGrants mean? ESSER base, school district supplement, or special needs?
Yeah, so if you're in eGrants, you'll notice that there's a drop-down menu, and in that menu there are several different areas that may have where your allocated funds might be. The largest portion is typically in the ESSER base allocation. And that is funding that is directly from the federal government, and it's based on Title I funding calculations. You may also see the school district supplemental. It's also federal funding, but it was distributed directly to the state, and the OPI worked to ensure each district through ESSER 1 and 2 received funding. So even schools that did not receive Title I funding likely still got ESSER allocations through the school district supplemental. And then lastly is special needs, and it has similar allowable uses to the base and school district supplemental, but additionally, these funds must benefit special needs populations.
Jeff, why am I only seeing 2/3 of my ESSER 3 allocation in eGrants?
Yeah, so as Julie mentioned a little earlier, Montana has only received 2/3 of the ESSER 3 funding from the department to date. Once the remaining third is allocated to the state from the department, we will adjust the allocations, and then you will do a budget amendment to spend the rest of the funds. We expect to receive the final 1/3 after the state ESSER 3 plan is approved. We don't know what their timeline is, so we will wait patiently with you.
Construction and capital cost. What is the guidance on construction costs?
There is a lot of guidance on construction costs, and the ESSER Gear FAQ uses for ESSER and Gear funding for construction is actually a really great tool, and we'll dig into it here.
Is construction an allowable use of ESSER funds?
Construction is authorized under Title VII of ESSA for impact aid, and therefore it is allowable use for Gear and ESSER funds under these sections of the CARES Act, the following sections of the CARES Act, and these final sections of the ARP Act. However, the department is discouraging LEAs from using ESSER and Gear funds for new constructions. The use of funds may limit LEA's ability to support other essential needs or initiatives, and remodeling, renovation, and new construction are often time-consuming, which may not be workable under the shorter timelines associated with the ESSER and Gear funds. These types of activities are also subject to several additional federal requirements.
What are the federal requirements for approved construction projects?
Yeah, so approved construction projects, remodeling, renovation, and new construction must comply with applicable uniform guidance requirements, Davis-Bacon prevailing wages requirements, and all of the department's applicable regulations regarding constructions. And those can be found in 34 CRF sections 76,600 and 75,600 through 75,618. Some of the relevant parts, Part 75 requirements that must be considered before new construction is initiated are, I think we'll continue.
We don't have them here, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Well, all right.
Yes. So next question then to you. Why is pre-approval needed for construction and capital projects?
Yes, so the department requires the state to ensure that all grant stipulations related to the use of ESSER funds for capital expenditures are disclosed and understood prior to an LEA starting a capital project or purchasing equipment. The department also requires the state to review these potential capital expenditures to determine allowability or allowable use.
How do I get pre-approval for capital expenditures for ESSER 2 and 3?
Yes, well, I'm so glad you asked. All capital expenditures that meet state capital expense thresholds must be pre-approved before the project commences or equipment is purchased. You can find the pre-approval form located in eGrants on the property and equipment budget page. Those are category 700, or you can follow this link. This is a direct link. It is a Google form and it's pretty straightforward. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to field those.
Jeff, I know we've gotten a couple of questions about pre-approval. Can these districts start going out for bid and doing some of those activities prior to pre-approval?
Yes, and particularly if you're doing work on your HVAC systems and you're wanting to get that done ASAP, you can certainly start that process. You just need pre-approval before you start, you actually start the capital improvement or the construction.
So essentially before you break ground?
Yes, yeah.
Then you need pre-approval once you reach there. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes.
When can an LEA start the procurement for construction projects or capital purchases?
Yeah, so once pre-approval has been granted from OPI, then districts can proceed by following their local procurement processes and all federal regulations for construction and capital purchases.
Okay, so that's kind of the point that we're talking about, right? Like there is a little bit of room there to start some of this process, but then as soon as you are thinking about this, you do want to seek pre-approval as soon as possible. All right, can ARP ESSER funds be used for new construction?
Yes, provided that pre-approval and all the federal guidelines are met in the project and that the new construction meets the primary purposes of ESSER funding, which is to prepare for, respond to, or prevent COVID-19.
Can you say that one more time? I hear it from you all the time.
I know, I should have it tattooed to my forehead. Prepare for, respond to, or prevent COVID-19. So,
can ARP ESSER funds be used for renovations?
Yes, provided that the renovations meet the primary purposes that we just discussed. Prepare, prevent, respond.
Can the deferred maintenance of a district be paid for with the ESSER funds?
Yeah, we're actually getting some clarification on this from the Department of Ed and hope to have that this week. The initial response they gave us was no, meaning, and we're taking that to mean that expenditures incurred before March 13th, 2020 would not be funded. What we're seeking clarity on is whether you might have a deferred maintenance need that you had identified before March 13th to 2020, but you actually didn't. But it could be that the pandemic then exacerbated that deferred maintenance, and so you moved that up in priority and you started efforts to address that deferred maintenance need after March 13th, 2020. And if that is connected to COVID prevention response or preparation, where we are getting clarity to see if that is an allowable use, and we'll let you know as soon as we know for certain.
Thanks, Jeff. So we anticipate definitely potentially a slide change here.
Yeah.
Okay, allowable uses. Are educator and school staff salaries allowable expenditures under ARP ESSER?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And LEA may use ESSER funds to stabilize and support the educator and work staff and to support the conditions that will allow schools to return to in-person instruction. This may include using funds to pay teachers and staff salaries to avoid layoffs. Funds may also be used to address educator shortages exacerbated by the pandemic by hiring new teachers, including expanding student access to well-prepared and diverse educator workforce. That is a change from previous guidance that we had given in ESSER 1. That is new clarification that we had actually received from the department.
What are examples of strategies that could be employed to stabilize and support the educator workforce?
Yeah, so here are several examples that we can go through. One would be supporting partnerships with educator preparation programs to expand opportunities for extensive clinical experience to teaching candidates, including leveraging candidates to provide additional support to students and address the impact of lost instructional time as students return to in-person instruction. Another example, providing ongoing support to recruit, hire, and retain a diverse school staff, including through high quality in introduction and mentoring programs. Offering supplemental financial support for educators who commit to working in a high need field or a school for a minimum number of years, for example, 4 years. And continuing providing teachers professional learning opportunities on strategies for the effective use of technology for remote, hybrid, and accelerated learning, or creating and or supporting educational assistance programs that pay off student loans on behalf of staff as a component of recruitment and retention efforts in response to the pandemic. So there are lots of different ways, and these are just a few examples. And using these funds, an LEA should consider ways that will build short and long-term capacity and be sustained after the fund is no longer available. Evidence-based approaches to stabilizing the educator workforce are further described in Volume 2 of the department's COVID handbook, and it's available at the link here on the slide.
May an LEA use ESSER and GEAR funds to hire additional health support staff?
Yes, funds may be used to hire new mental health counselors, nurses, social workers, and other health support staff to help students and staff with their emotional and physical well-being and help students and staff deal with the impact of COVID-19. An LEA should consider how to use the funds in ways that will build its short-term and long-term capacity and be sustained after the funding is no longer available.
May an LEA use ESSER and GEAR funds to provide premium pay or other additional compensation for teachers, principals, and other school personnel, including school nutrition staff and custodians?
Yes, and this is also a change to some previous guidance that we provided, but premium pay must be reasonable and necessary and consistent with the federal code and given pursuant of an established plan, which could be established in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, consistent with applicable collective bargaining agreements and other relevant policies and requirements.
All right, maintenance of equity. We've been seeing a lot of new information coming out of the department about maintenance of equity. What is it?
Yeah, so the department released guidance on the 9th of this month for state and local entities as they implement these new requirements. So, and there's the link. Section 2004 of the ARP Act includes new maintenance of equity provisions that are a condition for states and local entities to receive funds under ARP ESSER. In addition, Appendix A includes information on baseline and initial maintenance of equity data that each SEA must submit by July 30th of 2020 for fiscal year 2022. It covers both SEA and LEA level of maintenance of equity requirements and maintenance of equity requirements apply to fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 2023.
What are the state maintenance of equity tests?
Yeah, so there are two, high need and highest poverty LEAs. And high need is in fiscal years 22 and 23, states cannot disproportionately reduce per pupil state funding for high needs LEAs. And high need LEAs are LEAs with the highest percentage of economically disadvantaged students based on, Julie, how do we shorten that? Is it SAPE?
It's actually used for Title I distribution data that determines kind of a combination from the census, if you will. So yes.
Yes.
It's how you determine high need. Yep.
Yes. And then collectively serve at least 50% of the state's total enrollment. So highest poverty LEAs. So in fiscal years 22 and 23, states cannot reduce per pupil state funding to its highest poverty LEAs below what they received in fiscal year 19. So highest poverty LEAs are LEAs with the highest percentage of economically disadvantaged students and collectively serve at least 20% of the state's total enrollment.
So Jeff, when we take a look at this, really the two pieces that are really critical is understanding that this is two-pronged. It's both the high need and highest poverty. And then two critical numbers that are really important here. For high need, it's to serve at least 50% of the state's total enrollment that are high need. Whereas for the highest poverty, it's at least 20% of the state's total enrollment for highest poverty. All right. How will maintenance of equity apply to LEAs now that we've talked about the state?
So maintenance of equity applies to all LEAs that receive ARP ESSER funds, except for those with less than 1,000 students, only one school, or only one school per grade span. So elementary, middle, junior high, high school. In fiscal years 22 and 23, LEAs may not reduce per pupil state and local funding to high poverty schools more than the total reduction in per pupil funding to all schools and per pupil FTEs to high poverty schools more than the total reduction in per pupil FTEs in all schools.
What are high poverty schools again, Jeff?
Yeah, so high poverty schools are not the same as Title I or Title I eligible schools. High poverty schools are schools in the highest quartile of schools served by the LEA based on the percentage of economically disadvantaged students.
All right, well, we've made it to the very end here of part one. And so now we definitely want to open up the floor to any questions that any of our participants might have.
And you're welcome to unmute yourself and pose a question or enter a question in the chat box.
All right, so hey, this is Fred Hoff, and we spoke yesterday briefly in the afternoon, right?
Yes, we did.
So I'm the new. I'm gonna put my hat on. No, you know what? I'm not going to because this is being recorded. In any event, I inherited a hat, and that kind of makes fun of our mascot name and my position or new position at the school, or what it will be in July. In any event, I'll send you a picture of it later.
Okay.
But so I'm new here at Chinook, right? And officially, I don't even officially start until, I mean, I'm on payroll now as an assistant, but until July 1. And so our board did not review a plan in like June or anything, and the deadline's coming up. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to get, because again, I'm still pretty new here. I don't even know all my board members. I know the board chair. That's it. That's all I know, really. And so if I have like our plan, for example, I kind of just take our plan from Harrison and I input all the information from Chinook, and we get that on our website. Are we going to be able to approve that in July at a regular meeting, or do we need to have a special meeting, on Thursday? That's my big dilemma question right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they've discussed it, obviously. I mean, I got all the dates they've discussed it over the last 16 months or whatever it's been. they didn't actually approve this template. And so that's my question is, do they have to approve it prior to the 24th, or can I put it up the draft that we have that still incorporates all the stuff that they've done? Their last change to the plan would have been in February. So it would have been within 6 months, and we can do it again in July. Or I guess my big question is, do I need to do it again for them? I call a special meeting and on Thursday we meet and go over the template. That's, I guess, my ultimate $1 million question, or $840,000 question, whatever it is.
So, hi, Fred, this is Julie. Just looking up,
I'm in
so
Chinook now. Yeah.
you're in Chinook now. Well,
I don't know,
congratulations.
the sugar beaters.
Oh,
Beaters.
you are? Well,
Beaters.
Jeff's a
And I'm the
potato
headmaster.
farmer.
So there's a cute clue to what my hat says.
Yes. Our potato farm was a sugar beet farm before it was a potato farm, Julie. But that was before Jeff. Yeah. Go ahead, Julie.
So I would say this, Fred, I don't think it's a requirement that you have to have it approved by the school board, okay?
Okay.
But I would say this is, you do want to make a plan available, right? And you do have
Yep.
to go back and review it every 6 months anyways. So you could post the most current one that you have, right?
Yep.
Whatever plan they might have already kind of put together.
Yep.
And then you're gonna need to go back and be sure that, because you have to post a plan within 30 days of receiving the ESSER 3 funds, right? And so I would just, you're going to want to be sure that you can do that, put that up there, knowing that you do have to revise the plan at a minimum of every 6 months, right?
I'll probably just make it a standing agenda item. It'll just be, we'll do it every month, whether we
Right.
actually change it or not, but we'll give everybody an opportunity to input and
Yep.
have thoughts about something. So then I don't have to worry about that part of the equation.
Right. So Fred, I think that's the most critical piece that just mentioned, right? That there's a minimum that an LEA is required to gather that stakeholder input. And so it's really important that you're able to do that and get that consultation from them in the one that you review and update.
Got it.
Okay. And so that's what I would, and I definitely would be working very closely with the school board, but just particularly because you want to be thinking about what safety policies were you adopting or not adopting and why, and that's a policy decision. So
Sure.
I would say that it's not a requirement, but
Gotcha.
so this is the answer that I have for you, okay? Does the local school board need to approve the return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan? No, there is not a requirement for the local board to approve the plans. However, the local board is required by the grant application assurances to have a discussion of the uses of the ESSER 3 funds, given that the funds are one-time in nature. The actual plans are approved based upon the LEA's local policies regarding approval as such type
All right.
plans. So
We're
that
good.
would be my suggestion to you. I don't know if I helped at all.
No, you did. You
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that answers my question. It's also consistent with what I was kind of already told, right? So yeah. We're good.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was my comment, Fred, is like, don't you love it that you got this a consistent answer to what you got yesterday from two different people at OPI. So
That's perfect. Yes.
I'm really happy about that.
and here, the weird thing is that my old school, which I'm still technically the superintendent of, they were almost refused to adopt a plan. So they sort of left me out there hanging all year. And whenever the parents came and complained, they just said, well, it's all Fred.
Yes.
That's how that went. We discussed it all the time though. So everybody had opportunity for input. And it was never an issue there, but
Good. Yeah.
all right. Well, there we go. That was my question.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
Okay. Any other questions, Fred, or any other questions from other participants?
There is a question in the chat, and yes, we will make the slide presentation available. It will likely be up on our website. If not by the end of the day today, it's usually up by next day. Our slide deck will be available, as well as the recording will be available on the OPI website.
Yeah, Jeff, also in the chat, I see that Emily Dean did provide the link to the MONPEC model for the Safe Return to Schools and Continuity Service Plan. And so Fred, I don't know if you've taken a look at that, but I would suggest you do check into that link and into that plan. It could be very helpful for you.
Yeah, that's the template we use at Harrison, and I've already created a template here for Chinook as well. So
Great.
I've already got it ready to roll. My bigger question was whether it had to be at a board meeting before we got it posted.
Okay.
Great.
Other questions?
I will say this. I mean, MONPEC also has a plan and template out for ESSER 3. And it's certainly a valuable tool to look at as you kind of formulate your thoughts. But you can't substitute that for the plan that the state is requiring. You have to use the state template that we are offering in Teams. And part of that is because of the federal reporting regulations that the state is required. We need all of our districts submitting their plans in a uniform template across the state. So we thank our colleagues at Mount Peck for doing some good footwork there. It's certainly good food for thought and will help you in your process, but be sure to use the OPI template when you're actually submitting the plan.
Yes, Jeff, and I would say too, another reason that we're looking at using this template is we're going to be proposing in July from at the next Board of Public Ed meeting that districts could be using the district ARP ESSER plan in place of the continuous school improvement plan requirement. So we're trying to streamline and consolidate the requirements out to our school districts so that they are not completing multiple plans, but rather one. But of course, that is going to be the Board of Public Ed's final decision, but we will be putting that forward. So that's another reason why we want to be able to have one template, if you will. I would say this, you guys, it is in production. Took a look at it again last night as we're testing it and, just trying it out to see, is it time intensive? How long will it take? It's really the pre-work that you mentioned, Jeff, that's the most important, so that when you actually sit down to complete the template, it'll go pretty quickly because you're just doing some selections and some drop down features. So, that document that MONPEC did provide does really have the key questions that will be the ones they have to think about. So we will be posting probably no later than I would think Monday, more information about the template so districts can start to really plan for that. So Jewel asked the question, when will it be made available? The actual template will open up on July 1st, Jewel, in the Teams application. But we will be providing some pre-planning information, guiding questions, things to think about in preparation of getting completing that template. Probably here by Monday, I would imagine, of the upcoming week. And so, yeah. So we're thinking that it's going to be a good, very efficient, effective, manageable, and really kind of streamlined process, if you will. All right, so just to kind of close out then on our sessions, like I just said, we do have quite a bit of information that you can find on the ESSER tab in the main page, if you will. As soon as you log into opi.mt.gov, on that page, you'll find a button that says Find ESSER Information. Click on that and there'll be tons of information in there for you. And we are updating that on a almost daily basis with new information as we get it from the department or as new guidance is being developed here from the OPI. In terms of next session, this recording will be available on our OPI webpage either today or tomorrow. We will also post this slide deck up there. I do want to again remind you that the 2 recorded sessions from 1 and 2 are already available, as well as those slide decks from there. We do want, if possible, to submit any questions to Jeff by the close of the business each Friday, so that we can take those submitted questions and address them in our final session next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m., which will be located in the same link and dial-in number. And so that is really all that we have for you here from the Montana Office of Public Instruction. We are very thankful to be able to serve you and to support you as you are working on this. And just a shout out to our partners at MontPec for really being out there and helping guide this work as well. We really do appreciate your partnership in this work. And that's all that I have for you today. So you have a great evening, everyone. Evening. I'm ready for bed. There's no more work left today, is there? Have a great afternoon, you guys, and welcome to summer.
Yeah, somebody get her another cup of coffee.
I might need to get a cup of coffee. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Jeff, I'll stay on for a few more minutes if somebody has a question.
Okay, I can do that too.